wanted to ask in general, like, why did you want to write this? I don't think of you and think of Hollywood. Like,
Well, don't you write scripts on the side, Danny?
Well, a couple of things. More important, it's actually not that disconnected from my research. I have been interested in the social role of the intellectual. That has been a big part of my own interests. And the writers are intellectuals, so they do have a particular social role to play. And then, like many writers, I've brushed up against the industry in a variety of ways, optioning my articles, writing screenplays myself. And it was something that I became familiar with through there. So I think that that got me interested in it. And being in LA, and being part of sort of writer artist circles, I got to know a lot of writers, and I got to learn a bit more about the business. And so I think that's what got me interested in writing this piece more broadly.
In your article,
I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. It was my idea. I pitched Harper's, and I wanted to do Harper's because I wanted to really spend time on it and write a big piece.
You didn't want to put this in
a rag like Jacobin.
Yeah.
Some pinko commie rag.
I wanted more than 8 people to read it.
Yeah, Jacobin I think actually has. I think it's pretty highly read. But yeah, no, I thought Harper's would be a good place to get literary with it, as it were. And
did you send it to Bill Maher?
Well. I did not send it to Bill Maher. No, I wonder if Bill Maher read it. Probably not.
Maybe, who knows? I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, a lot of people read that piece, it seems.
We should find a way to send it to Bill Maher. In your article, you start off your piece painting a picture of a struggling writer who is able to get a show greenlit. The show is quite an original idea. I believe it's the show Dickinson.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at Apple TV that agrees to put it out. And it's well received, but she does face some stressful situations. You write from, is it Elena Smith is her name?
Yeah, Elena Smith, yeah.
It was communicated to me, Smith said, that my only choice to keep the show alive was to begin all over again and write a whole new season without a green light guarantee. So I was expected to take on that risk when the entities that stood to profit the most from the success of my creative labor, the platform and the studio, would not risk a dime. Now, for me personally, reading this sounds like the new model of the music business.
Right. I think music actually presages a lot of this.
Yes.
Because I think music was, and actually you guys should have this guy on your show, Andrew DeWard. He's a professor at UC San Diego, and he's coming out with a book called Derivative Media. And he was really, really helpful for the article. And a lot of the data I got was from research that he had done. And he actually focuses in his book on film, television, and the music business. And the music business, from my understanding, really presages a lot of what was going on.
Yeah.
What happened to film and TV. I mean, music was just hit particularly hard because of online file sharing. That really, in the span of a few years, destroyed what had been a very, very stable business, where now it's barely a business. I think you have to be wealthy to expect to make to do music as your profession, i.e. you have to have money coming from somewhere else.
Yes.
And I think that's what's been, increasingly happening in Hollywood itself. The difference is it was never as easy to file share and do of sort of the technological thing that destroyed music almost overnight. But also, in addition to that, music was suffering. The music industry was suffering from similar processes of financialization and deregulation.
Yeah.
The rise of things like Clear Channel, the deregulation that happened over the 80s, 90s, and into the 2000s, I think really made it difficult for artists to make money. Even as things like ticket prices have soared for marquee acts. And so I think you see similar financial similar processes happening in film and television, as displayed by Elena's Elena's story. But the Dickens thing is almost dialectical, because she was making a show, as Elena herself understands and talks about. She was making a show about a queer female poet, and it was released on Apple TV. That would never have happened were it not for the 2010s gold rush in the streaming services. Of course, the dialectic, though, is that she felt like she wasn't treated so great, and that there were various problems with her relationship with Apple and the studio that made the show. So again, it's this dialectic that's happening here.
What's interesting about that whole thing, and I, as someone that spent too many years in the music industry,
seems like a pretty horrible industry.
Anything in show business is horrible.
It sucks.
Brother
It sucks.
Bessner.
It's just basically you have to have money coming from somewhere else.
You have to have, anyone that thinks that there's an article that the Guardian dropped, I think last month, and the whole article was about mid-range acts. And much like movies, there's just different ranges, right? There's independent small studios and there's huge studios, and artists are somewhat similar, where there's people that play in 300 cap rooms, and there's people that play in 1,000 size. Those are like small theaters. And you have auditorium and arena bands, and auditorium bands aren't necessarily arena bands. Those are very different. And if you're playing,
arena bands is like the Rolling Stones and Metallica.
That's
right?
it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Basically,
They're all
U2, you know?
Yeah, they're all establishment. There's nobody
Yeah.
playing an arena right now that you haven't heard of for over 10 years. I can't.
Yeah, I mean, and like Alanis Morissette will like open for them.
Thank
you. know,
you.
like huge. Yeah, they're not.
I was really good friends with a band called Third Eye Blind, if you remember them.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, Jumper and How's It Gonna Be?
Yeah, please don't. It's gonna get stuck in my head, and I'm gonna get. Don't
Very
do
catchy,
that.
Yeah,
it's fucked up. But they had this poster in the warehouse where I lived in West. I used to live in their room, and it showed all the little clubs they were playing, and then there was all these arenas. And I remember talking to Orion Salazar, the bass player, and I was like, Orion, how'd you guys go from clubs to arenas? Is this when your song hit? He goes, oh no, we were opening for the Stones here. And he goes, and then we opened for U2 here. And even that, you don't see as much when it comes to artist development, because it's something that doesn't really exist.
No, there is no artist development at all. And it does seem like a lot of the people that are the new acts that break mostly seem to get some sort of internet thing before they break. Like that's like Billie Eilish or Justin Bieber. They're discovered via the internet, signed to a manager, and then developed that way, kind of. Yeah, but that's also pop, and it's just that. What the hell? Someone just said something insane on the chat. Sorry. Nah, it's just that Bessner is an elite to that level where that is his default method of discussing homosexuality.
I don't even know what you're reading.
Yeah, that's pretty good. But but I think there is no artist development. I think even in music, I think in film and TV, like in music, people want already developed artists.
Which is insane.
Because they don't think of these things as long-term investments.
And Issa Rae is kind of a good example of that, right?
I don't know much about Issa. What's her story? I know she went to Stanford. She did a YouTube sort of it was Awkward Black Girl, right? Diary of an Awkward Black Girl, and that like got her discovered. Like Broad City. I know Broad City a little bit more than Issa Rae. I watched a little bit of Insecure, but I didn't stick with it.
You know what, Danny? We're trying to get you okayed in certain neighborhoods when you go back to LA.